Hi everyone, I'm your host Kathryne Friend, and this is Hiring on All Cylinders.
I'm Matt Staney here, VP of Higher Community here in the US.
Today we're coming to you live from the Higher Altitude Summit here in San Francisco. I'm joined today by wonderful James from Wiz. Who's going to be talking through TA teams of the future at the Higher Altitude Summit. So James, before we dive into the conversation, first off, thank you very much for making time. So there's lots of stuff going on today. But do you mind just giving everyone a little introduction and a quick overview of your role at Wiz?
Yeah, absolutely. So James Footman, I lead the EMEA talent acquisition efforts at Wiz. We cover all business units outside of R&D. So we're in 10 different countries. We are scaling rapidly. So we are very much on that growth curve of trying to meet the business needs and hire really, really good people.
From your perspective, what do you feel is the single biggest shift happening within recruiting that TA teams need to be ready for?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of shifts in recruiting, but I also think the fundamentals stay the same in terms of we need to look at good qualities of hire. How do we hire effectively? How do we create good candidate experiences? And I think what the summit's doing, and just in general, is how do we facilitate that? How do we make it easier? How do we make it more personalized? And how do we really kind of elevate what we're trying to do? I think it's really, really important because companies will continue to scale. There will be different shifts in skill sets, whether it be shifts to more skills-based hiring, which we hear quite a lot, or whether it's more the traditional hiring. So yeah, how do we facilitate that as a talent organization will be really important.
And I think that's a really great perspective. And let's talk about the skills piece. Like if you're kind of looking at your TA team for this, what is the core skill that you look for in your recruiters today that maybe wasn't necessarily as important 5 years ago?
It's kind of if you talk about the mythical talent advisor, we hear it a lot, and I don't think it's ever really been defined because it will change from company to company. I can give you my view of how I think that should look like in the companies that I work at. So I work at the scaling companies, the ones that are scaling out fast, maybe putting first feet on the ground, building new teams, versus kind of really large organizations that have the teams and then facilitate some of that. So I like to have my recruiters to really have that kind of edge of the proactivity.
Yeah.
I like them to be curious and coachable. I want them to go out there and try and absorb as much information about our company and take that to market. I think that's really, really important because they have to go out there and impact change and add value to the business. And I think that's really, really important. My style of how I've recruited my team is I look for people that have done agency before. So they've gone out, they've owned their own desk. They know what it's like to build really bold and lasting stakeholder management, stakeholder experiences. They're effective at communicating, so they communicate proactively. The one thing we don't want to do is the business to assume what's going on or where there's delays. We wanted to give them the data up front and say, this is where we're at. And then create the candidate experience. We're the first touch point for most candidates to Wiz or to whichever company we're at. So be that employer branding person and drive great experiences so that if they join the business, wonderful, they've had a great experience. But if they're not, they go away and think, well, that was a really good experience. Wiz are really good, or from whomever. And then we'll come back and look at other roles as well.
I think that point's really important because ultimately our recruiters are the window of our culture, if you like. So I think like being able to maintain that is so key. Yeah. And I love that the skills that you've mentioned are all very soft skills, very human centric, which I think is really important.
Someone said to me once, hiring managers are really, really great at their job, and recruiting is not their 100% focus. So it's our responsibility to tell them what the external market's doing, the shifts, the trends, why people are interested in us, who's interested in us, who's not interested in us. And we need to give that details to the hiring manager because stereotypically, they think people are queuing outside the door to come and join the company. And that might be the case, but they might not have the right skill set. So it's all about helping them understand this is what the external market's saying and how we make effective decisions from that.
So I guess on top of those skills you've mentioned, the critical thinking and reasoning as well. So I guess, and I suppose we kind of touched on this, but like building on that more, like there's so much focus on automation.
Yeah.
So think about some of the things you just ran through there. Like what human skills do you feel are really, really important to protect that we don't automate?
I think you have to it's really easy, and it was mentioned earlier about the shiny new tools and stuff, and to be like, right, we need this, and this. But if we take a step back and think as a candidate, what would we want? And then that's how I think our tech stack strategy should be. I think in the initial reach out stage, you want to have conversations because you've got loads of questions to ask. You want to learn so much about the business. So I think that first, whether it's a recruiter screen or that first interview, should always be the human element, because you can get the answers absolutely through materials that are sent or through a chatbot. But I think it has to be, a free-flowing conversation, because that's going to determine if a candidate's interested or not.
Absolutely.
And then I also think the offer negotiation, it's a really big thing for somebody to move jobs. It's probably the big things in your life that you'll remember. Again, you're going to have loads of conversations and questions to understand more about the job if you maybe haven't had certain questions answered about the contracts and stuff. So again, I think you need to have that human element at the beginning and at the end. And then I think throughout the process, if you can have very good, well-educated conversations, I think it drives good candidate experience.
Absolutely. And do you have any advice for teams that are trying to become more efficient, but maybe facing compliance roadblocks with the tech that they want to use?
No, but if somebody could give me some, that'd be perfect. I think you have to align to your business goals. I think sometimes it's maybe controversial, so maybe it gets cut out of the podcast. We can make it complicated in talent acquisition. Yeah. It's kind of, how do we strip it back? What are the business goals and how do we fit into that? How do we facilitate those? And then that's the problem that you need. And then that's the problem statement that you will try and solve. So if there are concrete blockers, okay, how do we then, build the budget, build the pitch to get better technology solutions? Whether it be at the coordination stage, whether it be at the interview stage, I think you have to create the business case for us, the why as you want to do that. I think time is really important. One of the things that, I look at my team is my team do a lot of things. So how do I give them time back? And it's about those steps. Work-life balance is really key, and I actually think tech really help that.
And I could talk to you about this all day, but I know that we're pretty much at the end on time. So if you had to sum up, before we throw this on, if you had to sum up the Higher Altitude Summit in one word, what would it be?
Energizing.
Excellent. I think that's brilliant.
Problem.
Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today. Really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm sure our listeners as well.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Kathryne, Arnold. Kathryne, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
So I work at Automattic. I'm the head of talent acquisition there. Automattic is the company behind WordPress.com, Tumblr, podcasts, a bunch of other really cool products like that.
Nice. I'm from Austin, so I'm very familiar with some of those products.
That's right.
South by Southwest over the years and all that.
Yep.
Well, fantastic. So your panel today was all about the next generation TA leader. Just the conversation was amazing, but let's keep it going for those who weren't lucky enough to be in that small group of 100 TA leaders here today. So what do you think distinguishes talent acquisition leaders poised for future success from those that maybe likely will struggle in the coming years?
Yeah, well, one of the things we talked about today was just really decision making, right? Flexibility, agility, being able to kind of roll with the punches. We talked a little bit too about just the need in some cases to, as a talent organization, to really burn down what it is that we've been doing and really rebuild that back up. So I think for people who are trying to grow in this space, just being able to identify where those spaces exist where we need to just kind of say, okay, that's not working. We need to figure something else out. So really a lot of critical thinking, really a lot of smart decision making, kind of rolling, just going with the flow, basically.
Love that. It really seems like we're at this critical moment where everything is changing.
Yeah.
Everything's being disrupted.
Yeah.
Technology's coming in and making us look at everything. It really is the perfect time to, as Jose said, burn down the boat.
Burn the boat down.
And really be able to think outside the box, think of new ways of doing what we do in better, more human ways.
Yeah.
With technology. I love it.
Yeah, and be really curious about things, we always need to be asking questions. 6 months ago at my company, we were a very different company. 6 months from now, we're going to be a very different company. So just really, really being curious about why are we doing this way? Is there a better way to do it? what does excellence look like? What kind of outcomes do we want? Like, just always be thinking and having a curious mindset around
Yeah.
this.
So this old pattern of like a great recruiter moving up into a TA leader,
Right.
We really need, and I kind of got this from the conversation, TA leaders who are business minded.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you came from the business side into talent. Is that correct?
Yeah, not only did I come in as a WordPress practitioner into Automattic, I also learned hiring the way that Automattic needed it to be done at the time, right? I have no recruiting experience from outside Automattic. Everything I learned there. So just this whole growth cycle, and then also being connected, like you said, being connected to the business. We also talked about how important it is to have connections with finance, like the finance team. So for the first 4 or 5 years of being the head of talent at Automattic, I actually reported to the CFO. So like, what better way? A lot of people would look at me and say, wow, that was really hard. I actually found it extremely enjoyable. The things that I learned about how to manage a TA org in the context of what a finance division needs or wants or understands about the world, right? Those things were able to come together and kind of really grow into something that I think was pretty special.
And how great to be able to influence that department, because
Right.
given the
Right.
in the past of HR being sort of a cost center,
Exactly.
to report in the CFO and be able to influence that, understand how they're thinking,
Right.
position your org to
A lot
that.
of mutual conversations, a lot of mutual understanding. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Next question is, what's one skill or mindset shift that you're intentionally working on right now to stay ahead of where TA is going?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, really, I mean, I think Jose really nailed it with his boat burning thing. I mean, that's just what we're doing. That's the mindset every single day. Just everything that we do not have to be doing it that way. What is the better way to do it? It's to do it. And so personally, I'm trying to look at everything like that. Like, no ego, no, sitting on what it is that we've done forever, but just really approaching everything like we're learning it all from scratch.
I think that's a great mindset, because it does seem like the key word right now is like consolidation. There's innovation, but also consolidation. Like, the role of a TA leader is being consolidated, is taking on more of the HR function. The companies and even our own HR tech solutions in this space are consolidating and becoming more platform focused. And so being able to know that and then go, all right, then it's okay for us to just throw out what we used to do and really do it more holistically, do it more proactively.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of conversation about like generalist versus specialist and kind of where we all feel, how we all feel about that. But I think there's definitely a conversation. This is probably what's going to be happening with my org in the coming, I don't know, year, I suppose, is just really looking in what is it that's going on across our entire HR talent space. And how is it that how can we make sure, whether we become more generalists or more specialists, how do we do the best work that we can do? And if someone holds a specific role, does that mean they can't work on this thing? No, they can work on the, so like cross-training kind of, that more of a, like you said, holistic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's holistic. It's not so much about consolidation. You're right. Yeah. It's more about like a wider scope, but specialized skills.
Right. And like, where can we pull in like this person who sits over and does this work? We haven't been working with them for whatever reason. Well, what if we brought them in here? What kind of value do they add? So I want to really just look, together with my head of HR, just like really look at like, what is it that we're doing and how can we together as a collective be more?
Awesome. I love it. Fine. Thanks so much for talking. Thanks for speaking at the event and for being a member of Higher Leaders Network.
Thank you very much.
And I'm here with Tracy. Tracy, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Tracy St.Dic. I'm the Global Head of Talent at Zapier. And Zapier is a no-code automation platform. We're the world's most connected AI orchestration platform right now. And I lead everything with the word talent in the title in some cases. So talent acquisition, talent intelligence, talent branding, also internal mobility pathways, and things like that.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it has been a whirlwind first half of Higher Altitude Summit today. And we've been talking about tech-enabled TA functions, right? So tell me about, what where do you start with a tech-enabled TA function?
So I think we have to take a little bit of a step back and start with your company's philosophy or vision for what you want the candidate experience to be. Just like if you're building a product, you think about what's the user experience as number one. So I like to think about what is our vision for our candidate experience that aligns with our company's values. That's primary. Secondary would be what is the vision for our hiring manager experience, because that's your other stakeholder, and then the interview team experience. And then I think you go from there, because if you can have a really clear philosophy about what you want that to look like, then it becomes easier to figure out, okay, well, where does the human in the loop need to be? And where can we become significantly more efficient by having tech-enabled options? But if you don't start with that vision, then you're just kind of like hodgepodging together tech tools or whatever is like the sexy thing that comes out. And so I think you have to start with like, even if the tech isn't there yet, this is what I believe our hiring experience should be. And then you start to say, are there tech tools that can fulfill that? Or do I need to wait for tech tools to get there? Or can I push other vendors' products that I already use to get there faster? And so that's where I think like people need to kind of take a step back, get at a higher altitude.
Nice.
I was just waiting all day to use that.
Yeah.
I think people have to take a step back and actually figure out what is the problem that we're trying to solve, which is something a number of folks here have said too.
I love that, because I feel like, at least when I started out in recruiting, it's like early web era, right? Social recruiting hadn't started. It seemed like companies would buy the tech and then go, how can we utilize it?
Yeah.
It was like the complete opposite, but we're really gonna go into this era of this product marketing mindset of everything, but really within talent acquisition, because it is, the experience really matters. And I kind of use this like this example of like your strategy is the road and your tech is like the car, and you can buy like a souped up Tesla.
Yeah.
But if you're driving it on a dirt road with potholes,
Exactly.
you're gonna break. You're
Yeah.
gonna break the technology, right? But if you take the time to like understand the road trip you want to go on, if you take the time to like pave a nice flat road at a good strategy, that, I mean, you could be riding a beat up old Ford and you're still gonna get where you need to go.
What features do you need? What's important for you? What are the, I mean, I'm not great at analogies, but like, is it safety? Is it looks? Is it comfort? Like you have to figure out, again, what is the problem you're trying to solve? What's the experience you want to have, the experience you want your candidates to have, and then start to build your tech on top of that.
So how do you decide like which parts of the process? So like you got your strategy, you understand the experience you want to have, but like, where do you start? Do you start at the front of the funnel and work your way down? Do you start like, where's the biggest human element, and we need to get that right, and then the tech can handle the rest? Like, how do
I start on the ladder of like, where is it most important for there to be a human in the loop? And again, going back to what is the experience we want candidates to have? Because then it's easier to answer those questions. If you actually don't care that candidates are talking to a bot or other AI-enabled tech like earlier in the funnel, and you really want to have your recruiters concentrate their time focused with those that are actually making it past a certain stage, and you've determined that, then it's easy to figure out which tech vendors you want to talk to, right? So I think, again, you have to kind of go back to what's the overall vision, and it could be in any place in the funnel, but I think that's where you find what are the speed bumps that I need to avoid? What are the challenges that I need to solve? And then start looking for tech that can meet you where you're at and where you need it to go in the future too.
I like that.
Yeah.
No, it totally makes sense, because it seems like right now there's a proliferation of AI tech, and a lot of them are like saying, here, we can replace your recruiters. So I think we're at a point where just because we can automate something, should we? Like, and so I think what I'm hearing from you is that, yeah, if I'm thinking about what I want the recruiter and the candidate's experience to be, and I'm finding the human element that we want to have, then I fill in the tech to plug in the holes where we don't want them spending time, which means you might find parts of your process that you could automate.
Yes, but you shouldn't.
But you shouldn't.
I think a good example of this is like decision making, right? Like I am not at a point where I want technology to be making decisions on candidates. One, that's against our candidate commitment, where we say like, we are humans who are making good decisions. And also, I feel like that's where our recruiters really shine. And so will that change in 10 years in the future? Maybe, but right now I do not want tech making decisions. Now I want tech to offer up insights so that hiring managers, interviewers, recruiters can make better decisions.
Yeah, maybe even insights we wouldn't be able to see.
Yeah, exactly. I think talent intelligence, insights, analytics, like all of those things are really prime for tech or AI enabled functions to handle, because then it's just making better decisions and faster, but they're not the decision maker. And so that's where I feel like there's some like, right now, at least, I always caveat everything is like right now, because the tech is changing so quickly. And candidate sentiment is changing really quickly, right? So what candidates feel comfortable with now might be different than what candidates feel comfortable with in 6 months. For example, there's a lot of talk around, should we start to use like AI recruiters just for screen? So like like you don't need a phone screen. You actually can like whittle down your entire, the 20 people you would talk to, you can whittle it down to the top 5, and that's who your recruiter talk to. Yeah, maybe. I think that could be a really great solution. But again, you want to think through, not only does that align with your philosophy, but also start to follow the market. What is candidate sentiment on that? Is that going to turn people off? What types of roles do you use it for? What are the pros of that approach that is in the benefit of the candidate, not just the benefit of your own efficiency and recruiting function?
Absolutely. I want to double click on that, on what you talk about with insights.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as TA leaders, we've always tracked everything, right?
Yeah.
But getting access to that data, making sure that data is quality is hard. You almost have to go to another part of the tool or another tool completely, like a BI tool,
Yeah.
to crunch the numbers and get your reports. But like, you hit something really hard where you said something about like the insights, but like maybe at the right time or something.
Yeah.
I think we're getting to an area now that with the AI can give us insights, but in the moment we need them.
Yeah.
Like,
I think we're getting,
what I mean?
I think it's getting much
it's
more
not a retroactive
sophisticated.
look.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
in real time. Like, it's finding patterns and notifying you so you can adjust in real time, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, exactly right. Like, what is the information you need to make a good decision? And you have that at your fingertips. And I think that's what AI is getting really good at doing right now.
How do you get adoption of some of these new tools?
Yeah. Well, I think there's like a kind of a meta managerial view, and then I think there's like a practical view. So the meta managerial view that I have is like, as a TA leader, I think one of my biggest charges right now is to think about change management. Change management, pace of change. How do we increase the pace of change? How do we increase the agility, the ability to embrace change, to like get my team in the mindset of change is inevitable, and how we work through that is actually part of the skill that I need to learn. So that's like one on the meta side, management side. I think practically, my CEO says this all the time for our product: use cases, use cases, use cases. What is the use case? Show me how a concrete way that this tool is used. Let people try it, pilot it, whatever. Ensure that like what it says it's doing is actually what it's doing, and then start to like measure its ROI. So I will not use a tool right now that we have not done a pilot on that my recruiters can use, and then we can actually ask questions like, okay, you've tried that. How much time did it actually save you per week? And then adoption becomes easier when it's their peer sharing. These are the things that you
And
it's like, put it in numbers, make it concrete, show me the workflow, and yeah, it's use cases. Use cases, use cases, use cases. My CEO would be so proud. Yeah.
And I think it's like getting that time back. I think once the recruiters use the tool and they really, it clicks to them how much better it makes their job, or how much easier, how much time they're saving, they're going to adopt it.
Yeah.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much. It was awesome having you on the podcast.
This was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
And I'm thrilled to be joined by the lovely Anastasia, Director of TA at Remote, to talk about building a tech-enabled talent function. So Anastasia, thank you so much for sitting down with me and taking some time out of a really busy, fun-filled day. For those of listening, do you mind just giving a really brief overview of the role and what you're doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me here. So my name is Anastasia, and I lead the talent acquisition team at Remote. For the past 8 years, I've been helping companies to grow and scale their teams in an all-remote setting. So it's been pretty much my passion recently.
Amazing. And I know that there's a lot of really exciting things that you do that the team at. So when it comes to building a tech-enabled TA function, there's lots of things we've been looking at within your team. Where do you start? Where do you advise people to start?
That's a great question. I would say that when I think about enabling your team, I think that it starts with building some common ground and really making sure that your team members have some levers that they can pull to adopt technology. So something that I've recently been focused on as a leader in the world of AI noise is bringing some training resources and organizing some live trainings for my team to make sure that everyone knows where to start from, and also to really give them some inspiration, because I think that the ultimate role of a leader is to bring the team together and create some excitement around the topic and just give people space to experiment, to try and fail. So for me, that's really the starting.
Right. And with the experimenting sort of feel, like, have you seen like your team really like lean into that and really enjoy it?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I see like ideas sparking here and there, and I think that for me the key thing is to make sure that I can catch those and really connect these ideas with execution and the right teams. So something that we recently implemented, for example, which really didn't take us long, but in our Slack hiring help channel, where basically all remoters go to and ask questions, we introduced an AI-powered bot. So for now, like it jumps on every question, and if it's not capable of answering the question, it will tag the team, and then like humans will chime in. But like these are small nuggets of automation and implementation of AI that actually show the power of technology. So once again, you just need to kind of like grab these ideas. And recently, we also founded almost like a team of passionate individuals. Like we call them Tiger Team, but we spell this like as TAI, so it's T and AI Tiger Team. And this is just an avenue for us to bounce ideas of each other, like discuss other things that we've heard or we are dreaming of. So that's how we approach this.
Amazing. I love that. And I think like the self-serve bit is a really great idea. So your team's time is spent to really vibe.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So looking at tools, how have you approached rolling? I mean, obviously you've got a really big globally distributed team. So that makes Train Transport really interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you approach rolling out tools to such a large team and also getting engagement from both your team and then also hiring managers as well?
Yeah. So speaking about the globally distributed team, I think that it's worth mentioning that we have employees in more than 80 countries. So it's a really dispersed team. So when it comes to implementation, something that we were discussing today that really resonated with me is that in a short run, the technology impact tends to be overestimated, while in the long run, it's underestimated. And I think that the ultimate goal of a smooth implementation process is almost like to bridge these expectation gaps. And when you implement something, I think that there is always an expectation that it will solve for everything, rather than like when the excitement fades away, people become bored and they're less invested in tooling. So when it comes to the implementation process, I always kind of like start with assessing the complexity of the tool, because there are some tools that are just plug and play. For example, Hire was the easiest implementation. You just connected it and to start using this on day one. So depending on the tool complexity, we always sit down with the talent ops team and we assess whether we need to break it down in some kind of like digestible chunks. So let's say we implement the most crucial features, and that was the example with the scheduling tool that we are using. So we are solving the key pain points, and then we start releasing additional functionalities. And we always sit down with our vendors and we build checklists of the features that we have basically paid for, and we check whether we are using them, what is the level of adoption, and then we run additional enablement sessions. And I would say that I'm a big fan of bite-sized learning. And I think that this is how the learning and development area is changing right now. So instead of just running like huge training, you kind of like you do this in phases, and then you track adoption, and you go back and you set reminders, either your recruiters or your hiring leaders. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I love people like shipping back to how are we using these tools to the best of its advantage? And if not, why not?
Yeah.
I think actually, it's not just as simple as rolling out a tool, is it? It's like how can we continue to grow and evolve our team through the additional features of this stuff.
Yeah,
That's really fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
So I guess, and you probably answered this a little bit, but like looking at ROI, like what's your approach to sort of cutting through that line. It's making like really smart ROI related decisions when it comes to investing in tools. 'Cause we know there's so many tools to think about.
Well, I would say that in my dream world, there would be one tool that just solves everything. I'm a huge believer in that, especially just like based on my career. I would say that it's been always about consolidation of tools. So for me, when it comes to discovering new tools, I need to say that I'm pretty skeptical, and I think that I bring this skepticism to the team in the sense that you look at implementation holistically, in the sense that what I solve right now, what this tool is going to solve in, I don't know, like a year, like several years from now, and also how it integrates with your tech stack. And we work very closely with our product and IT teams on assessing the entire company tech stack. So there are tools emerging almost every day, and I would say that I always have this AI tiger team and like looking at those first and then really making a decision on whether this is something that we want to demo and then whether we want to go into any trial periods, because I think that it's always about trying the tool and seeing this in action before you're ready to start a full-blown implementation. And that was, for example, our strategy with Brightfire. We first rolled it out with recruiters only, and we waited until the moment hiring managers were begging us to get the same tool, and then it was the time when we rolled it out for the entire company.
And it's so interesting to hear, and I honestly could talk to you about it all day. But if we had to sort of wrap up and think like one key actual takeaway for a TA leader, what's one shift that you feel TA leaders need to make to start towards building a truly tech-enabled function?
I think that it is normalizing failure. I think we, as people teams, as like HR teams, we have some certain fear that is associated with innovation and experimentation. So for me, it's all about giving people these avenues to experiment and just making failures normal, because you can't do something revolutionary new without failing. So that would be my advice to myself in the first place.
I think that's a really great piece of advice and a great place to leave this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. I've really enjoyed the conversation and hearing your perspective. Thank you for tuning in to Hiring on All Cylinders. If you like this episode, you can sign up or subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're not already a member of the Hire community, you can head on over to www.hirehq.com and you can sign up for free. Thank you very much. Until next time.